All right. Let's see here. I'd like to welcome everybody back. It's been about 2 weeks since the last teaching. In that last teaching, we had talked about a bunch of things. One of them being repentance. That being said, we know the mark's here. I've taught on the mark ad nauseum. This being the mark. So, we know that that's here. We know that it's the mark. Is there anything we can do about it? Well, it's fulfilling prophecy. So, everything's going to happen, whether we like it or not. People ask me, what can I do? What can I do? You're not going to do anything. Prophecy has to be fulfilled. And that's what the Bible says. I mean, and we'll go into, I got a few things to say on Revelation here in a little bit. But, like I said, we know it's the mark. And if anybody's taking it, there has to be a repentance there. Because like I said last week, that COVID backwards is Divock, and that stands for divorce. So it also stands for, like I said last week, somebody that has an evil spirit attached to them. So, like I'm saying, if you've taken it, there has to be some kind of repentance. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying, if it was me, I would go to God in sackcloth and ash. I would throw myself on the ground and throw myself at His mercy and do the first works over again. Die all over again. Sackcloth and ash. Jeremiah 3 that we talked about. Jeremiah 3, verse 1, they say, if a man put away his wife, and she go from him and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Question mark. They say. Didn't say that God said, it says they say. So, that tells me God didn't say that. Regardless. Shall not that land be greatly polluted? Question mark. But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers. Yet return again to me, saith the Lord. He's talking to His children. Even though you've done something, even though you've whored yourself out, and not only did you commit adultery, but you married the person that you committed adultery with. Even though you have done that, He is still saying, come back to me. And like I said last week, Noah didn't go around asking people, if their bloodline was corrupt. He knew they were all corrupt. What did he say? What did he preach? Get on the boat. Get on the boat. Didn't matter if you were corrupt. Get on the boat. But they would not get on the boat. And we'll go over, because they would not repent here in a little bit. But that repentance, says because they would not repent, does that mean... Okay, so repentance means to turn from. So does that mean they would not repent before taking it? Or would that mean because they would not repent after? Or both? I'm thinking it's both. Now I know some people, very dear, I would think, to the Lord. But that's just me judging by their fruit. But yeah, have they repented? I know that they're sorry. I know they've asked for repentance. So, will God forgive them? Romans 9, 15 15 to 16 says that he will have mercy and compassion on who he will have mercy on. This is the Lord talking to Moses. Tell him, I will have mercy on whom I choose to have mercy on. So, to me, that's the Lord judging. That's the Lord's part between him, you know. Yeah, we are to judge. We can judge by fruit, but what do you do when the fruit's good? The Bible says because they were deceived. The false prophet deceives. Now Satan, Hasatan, he causes all. And that's another thing we talked about last week. Okay, so you had a little guy running around here, a few of them actually, talking people into taking the mark. So, Jannes and Jambres talks about in the book of Jasher, the false prophets. But Satan, he causes all. He doesn't just deceive a few people. He causes all. And like I said last time, he causes all by putting stuff in the food. He causes all by putting stuff in the chemtrails. He causes all by putting fluoride in your water. So, is there any way that he could try and mingle his seed with the seed of men? Yes. Yes. He can try and mingle his seed with the seed of men, but the two will not cleave. If you're God's child, it will not cleave. So, like I went back to Paul before. What happened when Paul reached down and picked up the piece of wood and the snake came out and bit him? He shook it off in the fire. He didn't ask to get bit. He didn't put out his arm in the case of, hey, I need that. I need that because the great physician I don't believe will take care of me. He was bit. And that's exactly what Satan does. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. So, like I said, that's between them and God. I've spoken in here about God taking his hand, away from us. And that the prophets are prophesying. And how basically man and Satan, men, a select group of men, and Satan are changing times and seasons. The World Economic Forum just had their deal in Davos, and they put it right in front of your face. WEF. And I've told everybody before, with Manly P. Hall said, when humanity starts reading signs and symbols, then a great veil will fall off their eyes. A Satanist from the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, as well as Aleister Crowley, the founder of the Golden Dawn, both proclaimed Satan. As a matter of fact, Aleister Crowley said he was the beast. But they used to teach their disciples to read backwards, to read in anagrams, to read numbers, talk in code, because they would not talk on the phone. They would not write out letters. So they get stuff off of billboards or periodicals or commercials. And that's how they talk to each other. So what's that WEF? It's few. Spell it backwards. F-E-W. Those are the ones that are saying we are few and we are running the show. Like I said, so they're the one changing times and seasons because God has taken his hand off while his prophets are prophesying. I keep saying this is the end of days and the books are open. And if the books are open, that means they're unlocked. What's it say in Daniel? Close up thy books, Daniel, until the time of the end. Well, that means the books are sealed. That means the books are sealed. You can read them. Most likely, you could have read them 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But you wouldn't have been able to understand them because they were locked. They were sealed. The Holy Spirit sealed them. And then we're waiting on prophecy to fulfill. That's why at the time of Christ, what did he say? No man knows the day or the hour. I do believe we can know the day. Jesus said we can know the season, but I definitely believe we can know the day. If Daniel can figure out days out of books, and like I said before in Daniel 12, it has a certain number of days there. It also talks about in other places of 3.5 years or 42 months, 1,260 days. Talks about that. So if we're watching around a certain cycles, because this keeps happening in cycles, like I keep saying, cycles. So if we're watching in cycles, we'll be able to catch the numbers, because that's how Satan talks to his people. Satan knows this book, and the occultists know this book better than most of us, but probably, yeah, for the majority of us, they know the book better than us. You know, I heard an ex-Satanist talk once. He said they go to church at 11 o'clock at night, and they'll stay till the sun comes up. And he said when they fast, he said they'll fast for 3 weeks straight. I can hardly even get a Christian, one of us, to fast for 3 days. And that includes myself. I hate fasting. But yeah, the Satanists, they really believe what they're doing. They know it's working. For a time. Anyway, like I said, the books are able to be unlocked now and discerned. So anyway, like we were talking about, the WEF, Klaus Schwab, and we talked last week about Klaus. It's an anagram for Lucas, or Lucius, or Lucifer, or Lucian, or Nicholas. You know, like the Nicolaitans, Niklaus. Okay, so we know that the UN is funded. They have a fund. They get their money from a fund called the Lucis Trust. Wonder who funds the Lucis Trust. It's got his name written all over it. So anyway, Klaus keeps talking about this fourth industrial revolution, the Great Reset, or like we've talked about before with the Trident, the Age of Aquarius, the Fourth Reich maybe. So we talked about Babylon before being the First Reich, Rome being the second. Nazi Germany, what? Hitler just come right out and said it. We're the Third Reich. He was saying, you know, Rome was the second, Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon. So Klaus is trying to bring in the Fourth Reich. He's going to call it the Industrial Revolution and say it changes you. You darn right it changes you if you let it. So, like I said, I was talking about how everything goes in circles. And I've even talked about the book of Revelation. And I said how it's the same story told 4 different times. Now I got a question. Is it the same story told 4 different times, 4 different ways? Or is it the same story told 4 different ways at 4 different times? Could we be on the last one? If there's 4 cycles in Revelation, and we being in the last one, that would make that 4th age or Great Reset that Klaus Schwab keeps talking about. That would tell you that you're at the end of days. Just like I keep telling you. Just like the Lord keeps dropping it to everybody. Everybody I listen to. My wife. Some of the select group of people that decide to talk to me because they think, they can't see what I see. But anyway, like I said, could that be 4 different times and us be at the last? We'll get back to that. Anyway, first, since we know that this is the mark, I want to talk a little bit more about the depopulation aspect of it. So, it's not just a mark. It's not just a mark. It is the mark. But there is a method to their madness. Right now you have 5.8 billion people walking around dead. Kind of like that show, The Walking Dead. I wonder if that's what they were talking about between themselves. The Satanists, that is. Telling people here and telling people there what to do, where to go, what to look out for, what medicines you'll need. Whether it's Hart's dog warmer or diatomaceous earth. There's one that came out that starts with an I, Ivor. Kills parasites. Isn't that weird? Kills parasites. Huh. So anyway, back like what I was saying, 5.8 billion people walking around dead. And that 5.8 billion walking is diminishing very quick because a lot of them are no longer walking. A lot of them are now on the ground. So anyway, regardless, history is chock full of depopulation. Chairman Mao, Stalin, Lenin, your whole history is littered with depopulation. So I want to talk about a few of them because a few of them hit close to home for me. One of them being the Union Army. The Union Army marched a whole bunch of Native Americans in a thing called the Trail of Tears. Women, children, a few of the men that they didn't kill and leave dead. But they, in the wintertime, they gave them blankets. Nice, warm blankets. And every one of them blankets was chock full of smallpox. Yeah. The United States Army did that. I don't mean to get off topic, but I was talking to a lady a while back, and there was a Hispanic-speaking lady inside of her store. And she got so mad at this lady because this lady couldn't understand English. So I tried talking to her, and I said, hey, it don't matter who's here. It matters whose they are. That's what matters. I don't care who you are. I care whose you are. So I try to talk to this lady. And I was telling her all she wants to do is come here and work and make it better for her family. Isn't that what the Amarukans did? Isn't that what the settlers did? They came here to make a better life for their families. And so I said, when your families came over here to make room and to have a better life, they killed off a whole lot of people. What do you think those people feel like? That's what you got to ask yourself. So anyway, yeah, that's the U.S. that did that. We've done a lot more atrocities throughout the years. The Tuskegee experiments. There's that too. Give your own soldiers diseases just so you can see how they just track it. Kind of like they're doing now. There's another one. This one was the UK, England. This was back in 18... I want to say the 1880s if I remember right. But this involves the Ottawa and Chippewa tribes up in Michigan. There's a place up there called Mackinac Island. And at a place called Arbor Croach, the chiefs had went into and visited in Montreal with the Brits up there. They wanted to go up there and trade. So the Brits in Montreal sold the chief something, and they told the chief they sold him a $10. That's what they sold him. Made him pay for it. They sold him a $10. And he takes this $10, and they told him, they said, inside this $10 is something that is going to be very good for your people. Don't open it until you get back to your village. Arbor Croach, the village on Mackinac Island, was 15 miles long. I don't mean to get emotional, but I know the story. It's 15 miles long and a mile wide. How many women and children do you think that was? So anyway, the chief gets back and he opens the $10. And inside that $10 is another $10. So he opened that one. And inside that $10 was another $10. So he opened that one. And inside that was a bunch of dust and mold. He didn't know what it was. All he knew is that the white man had told him that it was going to be a good thing for his people. 15 miles wide, 1 mile, or 15 miles long and 1 mile wide, decimated. Not a soul left. You can still go up there now, today, and see where the village was, because there's no trees that grow there. So yeah, that's the British. But anyway, whenever they sold that to the Ottawa chief, and they told him it was going to be good for his people, this ain't good for you, and this ain't good for your people. When my God comes back, He's going to set things straight. So now we see this happening here. The depopulation aspect. Deagle.com says that America in 2025 will have a population 100 million or less. How are they going to do that? What did Gil Bates say? If we do a real good job on new vaccines, thought we were a Christian nation. I thought this was a Christian nation. Why would God do this? Why would God do this? Why would you do this? Let's go to 1 Samuel 4. 1 Samuel 4. And realize God's not doing this. This ain't God. Don't shake your fist at Him. 1 Samuel 4. I'm going to read it kind of quick because we got a bunch of scriptures to get into. And the word of Samuel came unto all of Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and pitched beside Ebenezer. And the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel. And when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines. And they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? ? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was coming to the camp. So when the ark had ever came into the camp, the Philistines trembled, because they knew what it meant. They knew they were going to lose something. Their lives, their heads, their farms, their flocks, they were going to lose. They always lost. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, God is come into the camp. And they said, Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong, and quit yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men, and fight. Verse 10. Excuse me. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten. And they fled every man into his tent. There was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent, and with earth upon his head. And when he came low, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside, watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, What meaneth the noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, What is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. And it came to pass, when he had mentioned of the ark of God, that he fell off from the seat backwards by the side of the gate, and his neck brake. And he died, for he was an old man and heavy. And he had judged Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, and for her pains came upon her, her birth pangs. And about the time of her death, she died too. At the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, Fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod. Ichabod. Saying, The glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, The glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. Ichabod. The glory of God. The glory of God is out of this place. The only thing here are his prophets prophesying. God is done with us. God sent his Son. That's how much he loved us. Jesus came and he died for all. He died for all. Problem though. The problem is he died for all, but people will not die to all. Their sin, they won't die to it. They have to lay their sin on the altar. No sin, no unrepentant sin will enter the kingdom of heaven. No sin will go into heaven. None. No sin will be allowed. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 6. 1 Corinthians 6. Let's see what 1 Corinthians has to say. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 9. I'm going to read down through 11. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you, but ye are washed, but ye are sanctified, but ye are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of God. You are sanctified. Sanctified. So whatever those that were holding on to something, those that got saved and ran their race and keep running their race to this day without sin, I'm not talking about acting out. I understand everybody sins every day, but they don't sin the same sins as they claimed to have when they got saved. You know, that whole go say I believe in Jesus one time and then go back and do whatever you want to do. The homosexuals that sit there and never have stopped, not once. Sanctified. Live holy, for I am holy. Well, like we always say here, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let all things be established. So let's go to Revelation 21:8. Revelation 21:8. Like I said, Jesus came and he died, and yes, he died for all. Now, I'm not saying that those homosexuals or any drug addicts, drunkard, the Bible says don't do it. Any idolaters, the whoremongers, all that, says don't do it. I'm telling you, you will not go to heaven. Now, once the bride goes, once we leave, those foolish virgins are going to have a chance to let go of porn, adultery, drugs, alcohol, lying, stealing, whatever. They'll have that chance. So yes, there's still a chance for y'all. If you're listening and you're still doing that stuff, if you're not sanctified. So, Revelation 21:8 says, but the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and the murderers, and the whoremongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So, I don't know about y'all, but that says, yeah. So what's it mean? I've lied. I was a whoremonger at one time. I was a sorcerer. I was an idolater. Am I going to hell? Nope. Why? Because I don't do that no more. I'm not saying I'm without sin. I can get mad. I can get mad and say a cuss word. That's missing the mark. That's what that is. But I repent of it. And even if I did before the time I was able to repent for it, I have an advocate with the Father. I didn't set out to do that sin. I don't wallow in that sin. That's what this is talking about. Those that wallow in their sin, those that can't quit smoking. Let me tell you something. If you love Jesus, if you really love Jesus, you should have no problem putting those cigarettes down. None. This comes from somebody that chewed ever since he was 8 years old. Didn't quit till I was 41. I knew I loved Jesus, and I knew he wouldn't like it. And then, now that I'm further on in my walk, if I'd still been chewing, that would have kept me. That would have kept me from the love of the Father, and I would have had to let that go in a tribulation. So, like I said, out of 2 or 3 witnesses, let all things be established. So, let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews verse 10. And before I hear anybody say, because it says right here in chapter 1, God, who at sundry times and in divine manners. Okay, so the book says Hebrews. So I've heard plenty of times in church, well, that's not to you, that's to Hebrews. Okay. Galatians 3:26. Galatians 3:26. And then we can talk later. After that. Whenever you tell me that there's no Hebrew, there's no Greek, all that, okay. This book, it's all to you. This book, it's all for you. Anyway, Hebrews 10. Hebrews 10, verse 26 through 31. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sorer punishment suppose ye that he be thought worthy who hath trodden under foot the Son of God, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified in a unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. For we know him that hath said, Vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord. And again the Lord shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. So, that being said, I've heard tribulation. Well, that's going to be a works-based salvation. Okay? Yeah. Because you're going to have to let go of whatever it was that you didn't let go of before the rapture happened. And I'm not talking about a rapture like everybody else thinks. So I'm going to try and teach on this next week or the week after about the 2 witnesses and the 2 prophets. I'm going to try and do that. If you get a chance, Crystal on Dreaming of Heaven did a video on it. If you haven't seen that, go see that video. Mine's pretty much going to go along with hers. So, that being said, whenever God tells his prophets to come up hither, that's him calling his bride. His bride is his prophets. His bride are the 144,000 that supposedly follow Jesus wherever he goes. Why do they follow him wherever he goes? Well, that's because that's his bride. You know? I don't know how to tell you that. I mean, my wife and I, we go everywhere together. For the most part, you know. Yeah, that's what spouses do. So I know the book says 12,000 of this tribe, 12,000 of that tribe, and 12,000 of that tribe. And like I said, Galatians 3:26, there's that. And I know they're supposed to be virgins. Well, what do you think wise virgins with oils in their lamp are? They're virgins. I mean, God's coming back for a bride without spot and blemish, right? So there's that. Anyway, you have to run your race, just like Paul said. Run your race and finish it. No unrepentant sin. Okay, so Jesus, that's what Jesus told you. He said, count the cost. You are not going to get to live like everybody else. You're not going to get to do drugs. The Bible says be sober-minded. Not be a drunkard. We live to serve. So Jesus told everybody, if you're going to follow me, but count the cost. Don't turn back. That is Luke 14:28. We'll go there real quick. Luke 14:28 through 30. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and count the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? Lest haply after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish it. Verse 27 says, And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Count the cost. So, like I said, it's a race. You know, what did Paul say? He said, I have ran my course. I've finished my race. I've kept the faith. Could he lose the faith somewhere? Could he walk away from the faith? Sure sounds like it to me. You know? Yeah, I know what 2 Timothy says. If the Lord abide faithful. Right? Yeah. It means right there at the end, like I told you, I studied it out. Right there at the end, if you lose heart, right there, he's going to be right there to hold you. He will be right there next to you. So you got that. And I'm not talking about a works-based salvation. We do all these things. Why? The Bible says, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, now shall be saved. What's it mean to believe? Not do anything. Anything. If I knew it was putting a smile on his face. I don't do it for works. I don't do it for money. I don't do it for fame. I do it for love. My wife is a house cleaner. She cleans houses. She scrubs toilets. She cleans excrement off of other people's toilet. Why? Because she loves me. And because Satan right now has to make it to where everybody has to work. Otherwise they can't live. They can't survive. So my wife every day goes and cleans toilets for me. That's love. That's a bride. So, we do it out of love. We don't do it out of works. I'm not talking about a works-based salvation. So it says, keep the faith. If you're in a church that preaches about sin, or about this sin, or about that sin, but winks at other sin, oh well, that's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. If they wink at sin, that's a false church. Run. That's a false church. You got two churches. You got an occult church. An occult church that's basically venerates witchcraft. It's teaching you the wrong thing. Then you got A-Cult Church. A-Cult Church is preaching a different Jesus. There's the two, occult and A-Cult. Anyway, this video is supposed to be on salt and light. I don't remember if I said that at the beginning or not. So all this stuff we've talked about for the last 45 minutes is basically my introduction. Salt and light. That's what I put in the comment section of a few videos. People have asked me how I've been doing because I didn't do a video last week. My wife and I fasted this week. We had a lot of things going on, and we fasted. We obeyed. We felt like the Lord was telling us to fast. And I found out in the middle of my fast why. I hear the Lord. I mean, it's not like audible. It's different. It's like looking at somebody and they're speaking to you. Now, you can read their lips, but you can't hear their voice. So that's what's put into me, and it's almost constant. It's almost like all the time. Well, about a week and a half ago, maybe, my ears started ringing real bad, and real bad. I started getting headaches. I read into a few things on Havana Syndrome, just different things, 5G, like I was talking about that book that Arthur Firstenberg, The Invisible Rainbow, that talks about waves and electricity and all the stuff on the human body. So stuff like that, to find out why it's so loud I couldn't sleep. So my wife suggested that we fast. So we start fasting. And she's a trooper. She made it 96 hours. I only made it 84. But anyway, during that fast, it was like something was blocking. It's like I couldn't hear God, and that it scared me to death, because this hadn't happened. I've been hearing Him since August 28, 2018. And every so often there's a little bit of static for half a day or so, but it's like He wasn't there. I couldn't hear Him. I could feel Him, but I couldn't hear Him. So it was just weird, and I couldn't figure it out. So Monday and Tuesday go by, still nothing, and I'm talking to my wife about it. And I'm scared. And I know God hasn't given me a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. So that's what I kept speaking at my fear. And if you don't know anything about spiritual warfare, whatever problems you deal with, find a scripture that matches up with that, and that's what you speak to anything at any given time. It's called spiritual warfare, and it works. But anyway, Wednesday rolls around, and it was almost like He was not quiet at all. It just kept pouring and pouring and pouring. And I'm like I've told you before, I work at a steel mill, and I've got to run back every 5, 10, 15 minutes and write another page, because he's downloading stuff to me, and I'm writing it down as like I said, every 5, 15 minutes it's something else. And so I'm actually, when I look down, you can tell I'm reading my notes. I've got 10 pages of notes, and that's not even all the notes. So He just kept on and kept on and kept on. It was so amazing. And so I'm like, I wonder why. I didn't even ask the Lord. A thought popped into my mind. And I thought, I wonder where He's been. I wonder, because I could feel Him, but I don't know why He hasn't been talking. I'm like, but I didn't ask Him. And that feeling just came back. Like you're looking at somebody and you can see what they're saying. You can hear it in your mind, but you can't hear it audibly. Anyway, He said you had to fast. I don't know. He was talking about the. I know that sounds crazy. I'm sorry. The 5-7 waves. That, along with electricity. I was getting a lot of interference, I guess you could say. And everything you eat causes interference. Everything you drink causes interference. It's poison. So we drink filtered water. I don't like taking showers, but you know, I do shower. But anyway, he just made it clear that I had so much poison that I had to purge my system. I had to clean myself out. And that's, I mean, we did a diatomaceous. We did diatomaceous earth. We had turmeric, chlorella, some stuff like that. And like I said, it worked. You know, Monday and Tuesday it was rough, there was nothing, and then Wednesday it was just. I mean, I don't know how many pages I went through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but it was like I'm over in the corner trying to write real fast so I can get back to work because you know I want to be a model employee. So anyway, yeah, fasting. So that's why it's taken 2 weeks to get to this video, because I'd already had a bunch of the salt and light. I taught on this at the church before, and then this week he just, like I said, Wednesday he just started hitting me with it, and then I thought, oh my goodness, because he just kept adding. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done and get it to y'all, and I don't mean to be taking up your time right now, but anyway, yeah. So he just kept adding to the stuff that I already knew what I was going to teach on today. So anyway, enough about the introductions. And don't think I've forgotten about the question I asked earlier about, do you think it's the fourth cycle in Revelation? We're going to get to that at the end. So it's amazing. Anyway, salt. What do we use salt for? It's all throughout your Bible. I Googled it, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it said it's mentioned in the Bible 47 times. 47. There's a number you can have fun looking up, like the 47 president coming up, or there's a movie called 47 Ronin. There's a bunch of occultic numbers with 47. So Judas, silver, remember the 30 pieces of silver? So silver, the periodic number for silver is 47. So 47 is just throughout. It's thick in occult things. So salt. We know we can make ice melt with it. It preserves things. It can be used as an antiseptic. It can be used as an antibacterial, and we're going to go into antibacterial here in a little bit. It can be used as an antifungal. Just use after use after use with salt. We can even get pretty close on the time of the flood with the salinity that's in the oceans. There's a certain percentage each year that the salinity in the oceans increase. It tells you that the earth is not as old as what they say, because it's the same amount of salinity every year. So that tells you that the oceans used to be freshwater. And, like I said, the earth is not as old as what they have said. Anyway, at least before the flood. Roman soldiers were paid in salt. That is where the word salary comes from. They were paid in salt. Now, it's funny, because remember I keep postulating that over here in this country that this is Egypt, or people have been here before, because the way I found out the stuff on salt with the Roman soldiers was from the Choctaw Indian Nation, if you can believe that. So the Choctaw Indian Nation knew who the Roman soldiers were. Okay, so soldiers were paid in salt. That's where the word salary comes from. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 13 and 5. 2 Chronicles 13:5. Okay. Okay, this is what talks about the covenant of salt. Okay, so, ought ye not to know that the Lord God of Israel gave the kingdom over Israel to David forever, even to him and to his sons by a covenant of salt. Now, God made a bunch of salt covenants. Well, not a bunch, but basically, if God made a covenant with you, it was a covenant of salt, meaning He will preserve His word. It's adamant, it's a done deal. So, I'm going to go to Genesis 15 real quick, and we're going to talk about a couple covenants of salt that God had made with Abram before he became Abraham. One of them is Genesis 15. Now, in this Genesis 15, it talks about a covenant that God had made with Abram. Now, in this covenant, He put Abram to sleep. Now, back in this day, maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't, so I'm gonna touch on it. There was a thing called cutting covenant. To cut covenant with somebody. Okay, so what they would do is they would take an ox and they would cut it right in twain. They would cut the ox in twain, a cow. They would cut it in twain. One piece would go here, one piece would go here. And then whoever the two people were cutting covenant, they locked arms and they walked between the pieces. And that's what's called cutting covenant. So, blood covenant even. Anyway, in this covenant, God puts Abraham to sleep. Why would God put Abraham to sleep? I'm going to tell you why. Yahweh, God, had cut covenants, or had covenants with other people in before this, with Adam, Noah, and what happened? Those covenants always got messed up. They always got screwed up somehow. Why? Because the man was involved. So what God did was He took Abraham and He put him to sleep and set him to the side. It's God making a covenant on Abraham's behalf with Himself. So Abraham couldn't screw it up. So we're going to read this. And it's Genesis 15, verse 12, and we're going to go to 21. It's pretty bad when God got to cut a covenant with Himself on your behalf, because you're not, because we're not smart enough to figure it out. We always think, well, we can do better. We got this, God. I know. It don't work that way. His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. They are way above and beyond anything that we can imagine. Our heads would explode. Anyway, chapter 15, verse 12. I'm going to read down to 21. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. And also that nation whom they shall serve I will judge afterward afterward shall they come out with great substance. 13 and 14. That is so crazy. Isn't that kind of what's going on today? That sure sounds like what's going on today. Could we be on loop? I don't know. It sure sounds like it, doesn't it? Anyway, I'll go back to 14 again. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. Listen here. But in the fourth generation, they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. The Amorites that worship Amaru, where Amaruka comes from, fourth generation. Is that like the fourth industrial age, Mr. Klaus Schwab? That sure sounds like it. Wow. God knew all this way back then? Sure sounds like it. Verse 17. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. Okay? In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Now this is where it gets good. The Kenites, and the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Gilgashites, and the Jebusites. So he's going to give him all that land, huh? Man. Remember that video I did about where are we? I thought that sure sounded like we were in Canaan. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, maybe you can go back. Maybe you can figure out where we are. So that being said, God had made another covenant of salt with Abraham, and it was in Genesis 18. So let's go there real quick. Genesis 18. We're going to start in verse 16 and go to 33. Verse 16. Okay, now, this is where... Okay, I'll just start 16. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? So God's going to do something. And then he asked himself, should I hide it? Should I hide it from Abraham? What's Amos 3:7 say? He never does anything without telling his prophets. I love this Bible. Verse 18. Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Galatians 3:26. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abram drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy, and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? ? And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure, There shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, and he said, Peradventure there be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. Then he said unto him, O let the Lord be angry, let the Lord not be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, and soon as he had left communing with Abraham, Abraham returned to his place. Now, y'all know the rest of the story. The angels go to Sodom. You know the story of Lot. They get him out. They start running away. What happens to Lot's wife? What happens to what's her name? Adu. What happens to Adu? Adu looks back to Sodom as it's being destroyed. And when she looks back, she's turned to a pillar of salt. Now, you might ask, how do I know her name is Adu? I ain't never read that in the Bible, have you? Yes, I've read it, but not in the Bible. It's in the book of Jasher. Let's go. I'm going to go to Jasher real quick. And I'm going to read it to y'all. It's chapter 19. Chapter 19, and it's verse 51 down to 53. Now, maybe you've heard of the evangelists that always come around and they preach about Adu, or Lot's wife, whatever you choose to call her. No, she had a boyfriend back there, or she was longing for the stuff back in there, and she just wanted to go. She had she had boyfriend, she had this, she had that. She was an evil person. She could care less about God. I've heard multiple things, just running her down. So, I've told some people about this before. I mean, if you were a mother and you had children left there, would you look back? Huh. Well, the Bible don't say that she has children left there. Yeah, it does. It says it. It says it in Joshua 10:13. It says, and I quote, Aren't these things wrote in the book of Jasher? So that tells you that in that book of Jasher that you should be reading, you'll find what happened to Adu. But you'd find out a lot more about your Bible if you'd read this book. This Jasher answers a lot of questions that pastors should know. Anyway, chapter 19, verse 51 in Jasher. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah and upon all the cities brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. And Adu, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place unto this day. So God had made Abraham a salt covenant. No, I will not kill your family. I will not do it for this many people. I will not do it. So Adu was going to turn back, and she was going to go back in. That had made God out to be a liar, but it would have killed Abraham's family. And so God preserved his salt covenant with salt. and Lot's wife, Adu, turned into salt. I've asked this question before. I don't know if anybody knows the answer, but it makes me think William Shakespeare, supposedly, if you believe in William Shakespeare, not Sir Francis Bacon. That's who a lot of people think wrote all the Shakespeare stuff, Sir Francis Bacon. But he wrote a story about much ado about nothing, meaning those that care are too busy. They care for worthless things. So it sounded to me like he was writing about her, looking back, that maybe he didn't, I don't know, maybe he didn't respect children. Sounds like he knew that she had children, but maybe he didn't respect. What are kids anyway? They're going to be food for those in the tribulation. And that's how the elites are going to look at him in the tribulation. They're going to look at him as food. They already drink their blood. It's called adrenochrome. You can look that up. Anyway, God preserves his promises. It's sad. It's sad that we're the ones lacking. We're the ones shaking our fist at God. Why would God do this when it's us? It's us whoring ourselves out. It's us doing the wrong thing. Any time that we take hold of one of Satan's toys or Satan's devices, whether it be anger, malice, hatred, drugs, adultery, porn, whatever's in Santa's sack or Satan's sack that we touch, murmuring, griping, complaining, whatever, it's untold. If you touch one of his things, that gives him legal right to touch you. And that's what happens. Don't blame God. Blame yourself. That's where the responsibility lies. So, let's go to Leviticus 2:13. It has to do with salt. Why salt? Leviticus 2:13. Why salt? Leviticus 2 and 13. God tells us to use salt. Why? Why does he want us using salt? And every oblation of thy meat offering shalt thou season with salt. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy God to be lacking from thy meat offering. With all thine offerings thou shalt offer salt. Salt, like I said, preserves. Doesn't salt just make things taste better? Makes the bland things taste better. The things that are bland. Maybe all those sacrifices that are lacking flavor or savor. We'll get into that in a second, but a little bit of salt makes everything better. A little bit of leaven leaveneth the whole lump. A little sin leaveneth the whole lump. As salt is used for the other, isn't it? Makes it not bland. Nobody likes bland food for the most part. Well, God doesn't like anyone who feels it an obligation to make a sacrifice. If you're trudging up the temple with your sacrifice, I gotta do this again to be saved. I gotta do this for God. He is always asking me to do this, and He's always asking me to do that. You're gonna walk around in the wilderness for 40 years. There's no love there. There's no salt. Everything you do it as unto the Lord. Do it eagerly, lovingly. You know, like an employee. You know, it's I'm in charge of usually a couple people, and when they show up and they're not into working, or when they don't want to be there, they usually cause more problems or take more time than it would take for me to just to go over there and do it myself. So that's what God sees. God sees your heart. He sees your obedience, but it's not out of obedience out of obligation. It's obedience out of love. That's what it is. Anyway, He's looking for those that make that sacrifice. He's looking for those with a hunger to make that sacrifice, that want, that need, that feeling. When you wake up every morning, God, what can I do for you today? Is there anything? What do you give somebody that's got everything or that's in control of everything? You give yourself. That's all He wants. Anyway, it's all done out of love. Let's see what Mark 9:49 says. It's 9:49. Says about salt. Well, maybe I'll get there. Okay, so this is Mark 9, verses 49 and 50, and this is Jesus speaking. He says, "For every one shall be salted with fire, and every sacrifice shall be salted with salt. Salt is good. But if the salt have lost its saltiness, wherewith will ye season it? Have salt in yourselves, and have peace one with another." Now, there's another scripture in Matthew 5. So let's go over to Matthew 5. It's the Beatitudes. And I love the Beatitudes. I guess you could say salt all right with the Beatitudes. It's more like teaching us how to be salt of the earth. So, the Beatitudes, I'm going to start in verse 3. In verse 3, and I will read down through 19. Matthew 5, verse 3. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." Like I said, salt of the earth. "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out, and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever there shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, that one spoke of light, not just salt. We'll get to light a little bit later. Let's stick with the salt right now. I mentioned those two books in the last video about people wanting to study. Like I said earlier, Arthur Firstenberg, The Invisible Rainbow, and that has to do with the 5-7 waves. Actually, it doesn't have to do with the 5-7. It has to do with electricity, magnetism, and stuff. There's other books you can find on the 5-7 waves, as well as light and different things. Like I said, Arthur Firstenberg, the Invisible Rainbow. Now, this is the second book. It's called The Truth About Contagion. Okay, it's by Dr. Thomas S. Cowan and Sally Fallon Morell. You can find it on Amazon. So this is a secular book, but it talks about how contagions supposedly spread. Now, talking like this can get me in a lot of trouble, so I'll see if I can't use different lingo, so hopefully you can follow me. Anyway, pretty much everything I say is going to go against the AMA. That's the American Medical Association. The American Medical Association was founded by the Rockefellers. So, the Rockefellers own the AMA. You cannot become a doctor without being in the AMA. And they can also suspend your license. So there's that. Now, Rockefellers were able to do all this. They had given a bunch of money to the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, all of them, Stanford. They gave them a whole bunch of money and built them all new buildings for their medical programs. We've talked about lockstep in here before, and how everybody in 2020 in every single country was in lockstep. That went right along with that lockstep paper from the Rockefeller Foundation. Anyway, Rockefeller, he got his start. He was one of 5 children, if I remember correctly, and it was his dad and maybe his grandpa both. Of course, they're in the right bloodline, but they got their money. They had a pop-up stand that they would sell elixirs, like cold elixirs or this potion or that potion. They even sold snake oil, if you get my meaning. Yeah. So that's how they got their start. And then that's when John D. invested money. And like I said, you got to be in the right family to get whatever, to invest wherever, or they just give it to you. And that's along the lines of my thinking. You just get given to you, like Gil Bates. Everything's given to you. And like I said, the Rockefellers have ties with the Rothschilds. So do the Bateses. They have ties with the Rothschilds. Matter of fact, Bates Sr. Was their attorney, one of the Rothschilds' attorneys. So there's that. But anyway, this book explores theories of contagions. It talks about Louis Pasteur, stuff like that, and how they could see these things that they were calling I'm going to call them V sicknesses. A V rust, but I'm going to call it a V sickness. They could see them in the microscopes. Louis Pasteur could see them in the microscopes. And he's seen that every one of the animals or whatever he was dealing with that was sick had these certain things in the microscopes. So he just said that those V sicknesses must be what's getting everybody sick. Okay. But he was taking those V sicknesses and then the phlegm and the blood. He was taking stuff, like I said, and injecting it into other hosts, and he couldn't cause an infection doing that. Well, you always hear of a flu season and all this and that season, and how everybody gets infected with something at a certain place at a certain time. And I talked about in here before, everybody in a certain place at a certain time gets sick because they're being poisoned. And like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I study. That being said, they would take somebody that was sick, they would put a bag over their head, they would put somebody else in that bag with them, they would cough in their face. They couldn't reproduce sickness. Couldn't reproduce sickness. That's weird. Now, they can do it as long as it's bacterial or fungal. But as far as the V sickness, they couldn't do it. They kept being able to see the same things under the microscopes, but they couldn't do it. And the only way that he was able to prove transmission, and this is crazy, he took a certain amount of these V sicknesses and injected it into a monkey's brain, and the monkey died. And so he just said that the monkey had got whatever he had injected him with, and that's what he died of, and that's how he proved contagion. So, anyway, like I said, they were injecting people's snot into everybody else. They couldn't get nobody sick. But if you look up the word of the V sickness and look up something called an exosome and get images of both of them and put them up together, they're the same thing. Exosomes are the same things as viruses. They're the same thing. So what happens? How do you get an exosome? Okay, so a cell, it's kind of like the lymphatic system. A cell will collect poison, whatever. And what happens is when it collects it, it filters it out, and basically we'll call it excrement. Sorry, I know it's vivid and vulgar, but a cell will go number 2, and what comes out when that cell goes number 2, when it number 2s the poison out of itself, it comes out as an exosome, and that's what they are calling a virus. Study yourself approved. Study this stuff out on your own. Don't believe a word I say. You're being lied to. We're being poisoned. Poisoned. So, anyway, I learned something in this book that was really neat, and it has to do with salt. So, there was a man by the name of Hernando de Soto, and he was, and if you get into him, if you look him up and study him out, there's a whole bunch of stuff in with him, because he, let me read you what Wikipedia says about Hernando de Soto. Okay. Hernando de Soto was a Spanish explorer and conquistador who was involved in expeditions in Nicaragua and the Yucatan Peninsula. He played an important role in Francisco Pizarro's conquest of the Inca Empire in Peru. So, that's where the Gigantes, the Gibborim, the Rephaim, the Amorites, they were in Peru, that Incan Empire. So that's what he was on the trail of. You can look up the Shinkana or anything like that in Peru. Cusco, Peru, and the Shinkana. Look up all that stuff, and you'll find so much stuff on it. Timothy Alberino and Steve Quayle did a nice video on it called The Unholy See, which also talks about the Catholic Church. But anyway, let me get back to this. The conquest of the Incan Empire in Peru, but is best known for leading the first European expedition deep into the territory of modern-day United States through Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. He is the first European documented as having crossed the Mississippi River. Now, he is also responsible for they would give the natives what's called living water. It's whiskey. So, and that's what also that the British were giving the Chippewa and Ottawa when they gave them the smallpox. They were giving them the living water, the whiskey too. So, what would happen is Indians, if you've ever heard of an Indian trading post, Indians used to trade. They were big into trade. So, they would walk from place to place, and the traders would carry salt. So, we're going to, like I said, we're still on salt. Don't mean to get so deep into it, but anyway, here in this Truth About Contagion book, I'm going to read a little article on Hernando de Soto. Anyway, it says, some anthropologists have insisted that the Native Americans did not consume salt, but De Soto received an abundance of good salt as a gift from the Native Americans, and he observed the production and trade of salt in the southeastern part of the country. In the lower Mississippi Valley, he met traveling Native Americans, merchants selling salt. According to De Soto records, lack of salt could lead to a most unfortunate death. Okay, now, remember, we also said something about salt earlier in the Roman soldiers in the Choctaw Nation. So, we're back there again. But anyway, back to the unfortunate death of lack of salt. So we're called to be salt and light. So I wonder what lack of salt will do. Let's find out. Some of those whose constitutions must have, this is De Soto speaking, this is in his journal, some of those whose constitutions must have demanded more salt than others died a most unusual death for lack of it. They were seized with a very slow fever, and on the third or fourth day of which there was no one at 50 feet could endure the stench of their bodies, it being more offensive than that of the carcasses of dogs or cats. Thus they perished without remedy, for they were ignorant as to what their malady might be, or what could be done for them, since they had neither physicians nor medicines, and it was believed that they could not have benefited from such had they possessed them, because from the moment they first felt the fever, their bodies were already in a state of decomposition. Indeed, from the chest down, their bellies and intestines were as green as grass. So, we were talking about how salt is a antibacterial. That's why we need salt in our diet. Otherwise, the bacteria will overcome. Now, I'm going to read you a thing on something called Hansen's disease. And it just so happens that Hansen's disease is well known in our Bible. It's also well known, one of the pharaohs around Moses' day, and we'll get into that here in a minute too. So Hansen's disease, also known as leprosy, is an infection caused by slow-growing bacteria called Mycobacterium leprae. It can affect the nerves, skin, eyes, and lining of the nose, nasal mucosa. With early diagnosis and treatment, the disease can be cured. Can be cured. Leprosy can be cured. I wonder why they have all those leper colonies then over in India. I've been there. Miles and miles and miles. You can go 10, 15, 20 miles and still not leave the leper colony. That's how big they are. I've been there. I've seen it. I've smelt it. I've seen the clouds of flies that blot out the sun half the time. It's disgusting. And it's curable. So there's that. So now we're going to go to Jasher, chapter 76. This is one of my favorite chapters in Jasher. We're probably going to need this. Okay, Jasher 76. I'm going to start in verse 25. At that time, the Lord smote Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Israel. Was this plague at that time from the Lord upon Pharaoh, king of Egypt? For the Lord had hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Israel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Israel. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before the Lord, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. And when the Lord had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wise men and sorcerers said unto him, that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them, and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Israel to take their little children. And the Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force. They brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day. And the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. Thus did they all the days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh slew was 375. But the Lord hearkened not to the physicians of the king of Egypt, and the plague went on increasing mightily. And the Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with the plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Israel. And at the end of the 10 years the Lord continued to afflict Pharaoh with destructive plagues. And the Lord smote him with a bad tumor and sickness in his stomach. And that plague turned into a severe boil. What kind of tissue is in this? Aborted fetal? The blood of little children? Put into the wound. So, I'm going to jump around in here because I'm just trying to tell you the story. This chapter is really long, but I want to tell you the story of what happens to Pharaoh. So we know leprosy is caused by a bacterium. Could Pharaoh have not had enough salt? We're called to be salt and light. Did he not have salt? Is that what it was? Let's go to verse 46 in chapter 76 of Jasher. And his servants carried him upon their shoulders a little at a time, and they brought him back to Egypt. And the horsemen who were with him came also back to Egypt. And they placed him in his bed, and the king knew that his end was come to die. So Aparaneth, the queen, his wife, came and cried before the king. And the king wept a great weeping with her. And all his nobles and servants came on that day, and saw the king in that affliction, and wept a great weeping with him. And he afterward went and took 3 wives, and begat 8 sons and 3 daughters, and this is for his sons. And the disorder greatly prevailed over the king, and his flesh stank like the flesh of a carcass cast upon the field in summertime during the heat of the sun. Isn't that what we just talked about in Truth About Contagion? That's what we just talked about. And when the king saw that his sickness had greatly strengthened itself over him, he ordered his son Anakim to be brought to him, and they made him king over the land in his place. And at the end of 3 years the king died in shame, disgrace, and disgust. And his servants carried him and buried him in the sepulchre of the kings of Egypt in Zoan Mizraim. But they embalmed him not, as was usual with kings, for his flesh was putrid, and they could not approach to embalm him on account of the stench. So they buried him in haste. For this evil was from the Lord to him, for the Lord hath requited him evil for the evil which in his days he had done to Israel. And he died with terror and with shame, and his son Anakim reigned in his place. Lack of salt. That's what I would say. We're called to be salt and light. But if the salt has lost its flavor, it's good for nothing but to be cast and be trodden underfoot. So, like I said, those are just a few of the few things of the salt that the Lord has given me over the last couple years. Actually, I found the Jasher part about a little more than a year ago. It's just been amazing, this ride that he's had me on this last almost 3.5 years. It's been one thing after another after another. If you choose to study it, salt yourself, and you find anything else out, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Now, light. There's one thing I want to say about light before I get started. Now, not about light really, but about what the Lord had given me on light. Logos. Logos is the written word of God. Rhema. Rhema is the spoken word of God. So, when he speaks to me, I write that down. I always go to look in the Bible somewhere. There's always confirmation somewhere. Anyway, as far as light goes, we know who the light is. Jesus is the light of the world, and he dwells within us. He's our light. As long as we got him, our house is never dark. So, I'll try and get into this a little bit. Yes, I believe we're on a loop, and if that's the case, darkness is coming. He's been telling me that over and over and over. He's used other people to tell me over and over. My wife. It's coming. Let's go to Exodus 10, verses 21 through 23. I didn't do a lot on light because most of it's I didn't write down a lot of it. But I've got places in here where it tells me to explain to you all what I've seen, what I've experienced. I have first-hand accounts on some of the stuff. So, anyway, Exodus 10, verse 21. And then I'm going to read down to 23. And he said unto them, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go now, ye that are men, and serve the Lord, for that ye did desire, and they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt, for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, and the hail that left. Let me see if I don't think I'm reading in the wrong place. Yeah, I'm in the wrong place. Verse 21. I was in 13, sorry, or 12, 10, 12, and 13. So, all right, 10 and 21. My bad. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. How do you feel darkness? We'll talk about CERN here in a little bit and what they collect. They collect darkness. And if you look on my playlist, you'll see a name on there called Darby. And he did a video on this on CERN. He was murdered, if you ask me. If you ask a lot of people, they'll tell you he was murdered. He, like me, well, not like me, just like I couldn't tie this man's shoelaces. The stuff that the revelation that the Lord was downloading him, that could only come from God, and so he was done away with. So, a darkness that can be felt. Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Okay. Now, just remember, when this happens, and this will happen, it's already been foretold. The book in the back talks about the sun will become dark as sackcloth of hair, and the moon will become as blood. Darkness is coming. We, the bride, are going to be taken out of Egypt. This is Egypt. We're going to be taken out. We're the slaves. We're the Hebrew slaves. We're the seed of Abraham. Like I said, you're on a loop. We're on the fourth one, I believe. Take it to the Holy Spirit. You take it to the Lord yourself. Don't believe a word I say. So, when it goes dark, the Lord gave me this Thursday. I told my wife, do not go out of your house. You're going to hear things. Do not open your door. If you're the bride and you're still here, do not open your door. No matter what you hear, it may sound like somebody you know. It may sound like somebody you love. Do not open the door. Outside, in that darkness, there's going to be wailing and weeping and gnashing of teeth. And anything that's out there in that darkness you do not want to experience. Not at all. So the Lord put all this in my heart, and I'm sitting here thinking, God, I can't tell these people this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And, half of it sounds crazy, but I'm not. I don't know. Anyway, just remember, we will have light. Even if it's dark inside your house, you will still have light. Why? Jesus is inside you. He is your light. Do not let your light go out. Don't let your light go out. Another thing, walk by faith. In the darkness, walk by faith. Do not walk by sight. Your eyes are going to lie to you. And I'm going to get into that. Yes, we all know about Project Bluebeam. Yeah, I know. I know other things, and you're fixing to know other things. Okay. Let's go to Exodus 12, verse 23. Exodus 12 and 23. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your house to smite you. Now this is later on. This ain't at the same time as what I just read in 10. And this is at a different time in 12. That being said, don't open your door. Don't go outside. We are the slaves in Egypt. We're on that loop. And he's coming. He's coming to get us out. The death angel will come again. The death angel will come again to smite once more. Now, I'm reading verbatim right there what he had told me. Anyway, let's go to Revelation 18, 21 through 24. Okay. Revelation 18 and verse 21 through 24. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harpers and the musicians, and of the pipers, and of the trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found no more at all in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by their sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth. Yes. This is about 1823, and when somebody takes that, but it's got a dual meaning. This was given to me. It's got a dual meaning. This is also talking about here. We have fallen. Ichabod. So, as soon as this happens, as soon as where the bride is, because it says right here, and in her was found the blood of prophets. And then it's, Revelation 11, it talks about the two witnesses that Satan overcomes them. And of saints. Those are his. Saints meaning the foolish. That are dead. Because the foolish are going to get killed too. Then it says, and of all that were slain upon the earth. Anyway, at this time, whenever that happens, and God says to the prophets, come up hither, all bets are off. There is no protection for any foolish virgin that did not carry oil in their lamp. You'll have no protection. You will see that movie, The Purge. You will see it live and in living color. Get some oil before it's too late. I don't know if it's too late already, but get some oil. Like I said, the foolish virgins are still here at this time. And it says, and during the time till the bride and Yeshua, till we come back for them, they will have a chance to obtain the oil in their lamps that they were lacking before. Until then, they will be hunted. And they will be killed. And they will be slaughtered. The women will be raped. Children's heads will be dashed against the streets. Parents will eat and sodden their own children due to the great famine. It is spoken of in Lamentations 4. And I've spoken of before what it's like to dash a child. You could take an infant, you grab by their legs, spin them around and hit their head on the ground. That's what you're going to see. The famine will be great. Okay. This whole time that all this is happening, whether you're inside somewhere, whether you're outside somewhere, it does not matter. You are going to be chastised by things that you cannot see. They're here now. We are influenced by them every day, on a daily basis. Most people don't know this, but some of us have seen them. Okay. I taught on this at church. I teach a lot on the Native Americans. So the Native Americans have sweat. They have sweat lodges. They also have things where they go on a vision quest. They'll tie themselves to a tree. No food, no water for 3 days. And they'll start seeing stuff. Same thing happens in the sweat lodge when you're in there long enough. You can even do it with a sauna if you needed to. Nah, you don't need to. I was an intravenous drug user. Fentanyl, heroin, coke, meth. So anyway, the longest I was ever up without sleeping was 21 days. Methamphetamine is salt. It's not a good form of salt. Anyway, when you have that much salt, you do not drink. And you'll sweat it out. You'll sweat a lot of your water out. So what happens when an engine gets overheated because the radiator is not there? Temperature overheats. I got scared a few times and went to the hospital. My temperature was 106 degrees. Yes, I've read all the medical journals. I know. You're supposed to be dead at 104 after 5 minutes or something like that. But for me, that wasn't the case. I don't know if it was because I had done drugs so long and my body was just used to it. I adapted it and then overcame it. I don't know. So anytime I would take my own temperature, yeah. So what happens? When your body doesn't cool down, you get up to 106, 105 even, maybe a little lower. Your body's so hot it heats up around the stuff around you. And you don't see light anymore. Well, you can still see light, but you start seeing other things too. You've heard of people on Flocka or bath salts, and they start seeing stuff. Or if they're not, they start seeing stuff. You see them fighting stuff. You see them screaming. You can see them running. You've heard of people where demons will enter them and they will act like an animal. That's what they turn into when a demon enters them. So what happens is, after about the third or fourth day that I was up, and I've done this many a time, I would start seeing stuff. And it didn't weird me out. I would sit there and watch the entities and watch the things. I even had a conversation with a couple of them. It was weird. They looked like special forces guys. They looked like they were in maybe they were Green Berets or Black Berets, Delta Force, something like that. I don't know. Or maybe they weren't that at all. Maybe they were some kind of private security deal. I don't know. But you can't tell me they weren't real. And it wasn't until about a year ago or so I was speaking to the Lord about it. And because I'd remembered, I was like, man, I was so far out there. And the Lord spoke to me in that instant. He said that was all real. Everything you saw was real. Everything you experienced was real. What? No. You know, I just always had attributed it to the drugs. But what happens is when your body temperature gets that high, you start seeing in another spectrum. Infrared. You start seeing heat. You know of any other maybe animals that see in infrared or that see heat? Serpents, reptiles, yeah. So that's what it was. Everything I saw, the Lord was telling me was real, and it's really there. Later on, I was watching a deal on Mike Adams. I don't watch Mike Adams anymore. I know he's control opposition. But anyway, I saw the exact same special forces type guy that I had talked to. He had one of the combat looking helmets on. He had about 4 or 5 lights in a row. An orange light, a yellow light, a green light, a purple light, and maybe, I don't know if I said yellow or whatever. Anyway, he had lights across the top. And he had night vision goggles on. And he had this camo that I can only attribute. It was like it absorbed light. See, we see light. Well, what happens is, right now you can't see me. I know you think you can, but you can't. What you see is the light hitting me, and it's reflected back at you. It's reflected back at you in the same colors that whatever this is reflecting. So it comes into your eyes, and it comes in upside down, and it gets flipped, and then it turns into a liquid, and then it goes into your brain. And what's funny is, all that liquid that goes into your brain gets stored in your DNA. Everything you've ever seen. That's why the Bible says that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Everything you've ever seen is in your DNA. It's wrote. So, I seen one of those on Mike Adams. It's like a regular guy. It looks just like a regular guy wearing, like somebody you'd probably see in Afghanistan or back in the day, or Iraq at nighttime. But these guys had a camouflage. It wasn't like other camouflage. They were hid, like there was nothing there. Like they were absorbing all light. And what do we know about CERN? It collects darkness. So, I don't know how they did it. I've seen patents. I've seen patents on vehicles. You know, I'm sure you've heard of the Tic Tacs. Well, I've seen the patents of the Tic Tacs, and there's one that looks like a triangle, and I mean, so I know they're there. I've seen them. We don't see them all the time. They're just up there all the time, and they're absorbing light, and that's why we can't see it. I could tell you, Satan always tries to tell you this stuff. Well, he's not telling you, but he's telling his people. There was a movie called National Treasure, and we've talked about Benjamin Franklin in here before. He was a Satanist. And in that National Treasure, it talks about these glasses that he had invented, where you flip it one way and it's green and blue and yellow and it's different colors, and you can flip it in different kinds of sequences, and you can see one paper and you might see 10 or 12 different objects on one paper once you flip these certain glasses in a certain way. It's a filter. If you remember the movie Hellboy, the second one, remember when he was walking around and he would put these glasses on and he would see different things? It's because he's looking in a different spectrum. If you remember the Predator, the second one, that had Gary Busey in it, where they locked the Predator in that metal shed. And what did they do? They had this dust that sprinkled down on him, and they would go through the different spectrums, and then they would be able to see him. But he didn't know that they could see him, the Predator it was. So is that another reason for the chemtrails? So they can see stuff easier? Because it's obvious that it's not just the entities, because I've seen entities, and I've seen what I believe to be, they look like Homo sapiens to me. They just look like they were in army gear. Like I said, I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I'm just saying, when we're gone, all this stuff is going to be around, because God does not have His hand on this place, because His bride is gone. As soon as His bride is gone, all hell is going to break loose. The death angel will come, and then after the death angel comes, Jesus comes after that. And we'll get onto that here in a minute too. So yeah, I don't mean to say, yeah, I've seen all this and I've seen all that, blah, blah, blah. But I've been up close, having a discussion with them. And like I said, it has to do with your body temperature. That's why people see stuff. Because they're not being cooled. They're just being heated. You ever see the nanny cams on those ghost hunter movies, and you see the apparition go across the nanny cams? You can look it up on YouTube. There's tons of stuff. Well, what's a nanny cam seeing? It sees in infrared. It sees night vision, right? The only way you can't see it, you can only see the apparition, is because if you had to have a filter. If you had that certain filter, you would see it. So, you can believe me if you want. It really doesn't matter to me. I got to do what I'm told. I don't get anything from this. I don't enjoy looking crazy. I don't like talking about the ringing in my ears. I don't like all this. Like I said, I don't get any money for this. I'm not a GoFundMe type person. I'm not a PayPal type person. My wife and I work, and we work hard. I was homeless, and I want to live as a model so others can see the way that I have progressed, so they know that they can do it. If anybody, the people that knew me before, if that man can do it, I can do it. That's what I want people to see. Not me, but he that dwells within me, because he that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. Now, we all know about CERN. We all know that it's built on a town. It's built where the Asclepion Temple is, or the Asclepion Temple was, in Apollycum. And Apollycum, the town, worshipped Apollo. They have another name for it. It's called Leon, or Leon. It's also known as Geneva. It's where Antipas was martyred. So we know about CERN. We know they're collecting darkness. We know that's where the bottomless pit is. Okay. The Goddard Tunnel. You've seen all that stuff on the Goddard Tunnel. I'm telling you, underneath the ground, there's stuff called maglev trains. I know about those too. They can go... You can go from continent to continent on a train underwater. They have that. So the Goddard Tunnel, you know how it says all roads lead to Rome? That's what that Goddard Tunnel is. Anyway, there's another thing over by the Goddard Tunnel and CERN. And you can look this up. And there's many of them. There's many of them around the earth, under the globe, or under the dome. I mean, no, not globe. Forgive me, Father. There's many of these things under the dome. They're called tokamaks. Tokamaks. They're in the shape of a donut, but if you ask a scientist, science falsely or so-called, the scientists say that they're in the shape of a torus, and they spell torus T-O-R-U-S. But with those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, I know what Taurus is. It's a bull. They just don't spell it like the bull spelling. But a Taurus is a bull. That's Nimrod. Nimrod is the Taurus. He is the bull. Baal, Moloch, Chemosh It's all the same entity. It's Baal. Okay. Like I said, this is all Rhema. This ain't logo. You're not going to find it. Not unless he gives it to you. Anyway, these tokamaks, they collect plasma. They can be used as a railgun. What do we need railguns that big for? I mean, the elites, the few, the WEF, the few, they all know there's a dome above us. That's why they keep saying, we got to break through that glass ceiling. So they know there's a dome. So why do they have to have these tokamaks that they're supposedly going to shoot comets with and asteroids and all this stuff? Why do they need a tokamak? Why? Why do they need a Taurus? Why do they need the bull? So what's going to happen after the bride's gone and all hell breaks loose? I'm going to be at a wedding supper, and then I'm going to come back as soon as my bridegroom says come back. And when he does, we're coming all together. That being said, Relon keeps saying that he wants to go to Mars. Bezos has a big starship in the shape of a penis, just like Dr. Evil on Austin Powers, but it doesn't go nowhere. It goes out to Bermuda Triangle and hits the whatever. That being said, they're not going to go through the firmament at 5,000 miles an hour. It doesn't happen that way. And so if they're not trying to shoot a comet down or an asteroid, what are the tokamaks for? And how are they going to get to Mars with a firmament in the way? Like I said, you're looking at the fourth industrial revolution. This is the fourth time that Revelation comes in, so this is the last time. This is the last time you're going to see Revelation make that, the fourth story in Revelation make a circuit. So like that Bible says, at the end of days, he's going to come back. Anybody that tries to get into heaven another way is a thief and a robber. He has to go through the sheep gate. Jesus. So what's going to happen when we come back for our 5 unwise? They can't get out. The few can't get out. The Nephilim, Satan, is stuck in the box. He's the man in the box. He can't get out. God has to open the box. Think, people. God has to open the box. And when he opens the box, all those tokamaks that are around, they're going to start letting loose all their plasma at him that's on the rider on the white horse and the saints behind him. That's what's going on. They need him to open the box because they want out of the box. So what they do, this, and they make the upside down. They make the backwards forwards. They make the black white. Woe to him that calls evil good and good evil. And so they start chastising God's children. They might be unwise, but they're still God's. So, what they're going to do is they're going to taunt God with those 5 unwise. They're going to kill a whole lot of them. And then they're going to sit here like this, right in front of God's face. I got your children. I got your children. and that box is going to open. And my king's going to come down, and I'm going to be right behind him. And we're going to come for God's children. They can't get out. They can't get past the firmament. So this last time, and they think they're going to kill him. They think they're going to do it. What's a Taurus? A bull. What is a bull? Nimrod. Think, people. Nimrod tried to kill God the first time. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. He was hunting the Lord. You're on a circuit. It's coming back. They need him to open the box. Nimrod, the Taurus, is going to try and kill God. And they believe that they are going to do it. But God sits back and laughs, remember? So, anyway, I'll try and make the rest of this quick. Revelation 22, verse 6 through 21. And if we get time, I'm trying to show everybody, I keep telling you where we're at. If I get time, I'm going to read Zephaniah 1, Zephaniah 2, and Zephaniah 3. If I can get this done before 3 hours hits. I don't know if I'll have enough computer space to post it. Anyway, Revelation 22, verse 6, and read down to 21. And he said unto me, These sayings are faithful and true, and the Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to show unto his servants the things which must shortly be done. Behold, I come quickly. Blessed is he that keepeth the sayings of the prophecy of this book. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Worship God. And he saith unto me, Seal not the sayings of this prophecy of this book, for this time is at hand. Seal it not. Unlock it. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. Here's Jesus speaking. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever and loveth and maketh a lie. Get rid of whatever you have. Smoking, drinking, whatever. Get rid of it. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. My angel, my messenger. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright and morning star. Thank you, Jesus. And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let him that heareth say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. Listen up. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. He which testifieth these things saith, Surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so, Even so, come, Lord Jesus. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen. Now, I want to get back to this part where it says, if any man add to this book or take away from this book or the prophecy, let his name be taken out of the book of life. I'm not going to sit here and risk getting my name taken out of a book to tell you people wrong or to be misguided by some false angel of light. I'm where I am today because of Yeshua Jesus. I had nothing. I was nobody. I was homeless. I was a drug addict. I'm not going to risk losing him now that I found him, or he's found me. But I want to tell you people something. Right here where it says, add to this book or this prophecy, how many books are in this Bible? 66 books. 66. If you have a real 1611 King James, you'll have the Apocrypha in here, and there'll be more. It's 82 or 84, something like that. That being said, this book has been molested. This book has been raped over and over and over. But the prophecy of John, the revelation of John has not been. Because people know him that have eyes to see and ears to hear. Know that the prophecy that it's talking about and adding to this book isn't the whole book. It's just a revelation alone. Revelation was wrote on scrolls, not books. Books came later. So them that add and take away, it's talking about John's prophecy, John's revelation. That's what we're talking about. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and try and read Zephaniah 1, 2, and 3. It's 2:27. Hopefully I can get it done in 30 minutes. If not, study to show yourselves approved. You go read it. You study. You have a relationship like I do. That's my greatest hope for you. Choose to make heaven your home. This word, this holy Bible, make it Rhema to you. Make it Logos to you. This is everything. Okay. Zephaniah 1. The word of the Lord which came unto Zephaniah, the son of Cushi, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. This is where we're at. Read all 3 chapters. Meditate on it. Pull it apart. You will see today's headlines in every single word in Zephaniah. Verse 2, I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of the heaven and the fishes of the sea and the stumbling blocks with the wicked. And I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord. I will also stretch out mine hand upon Judah and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place in the name of the Chemirams, with the priests and them that worship the host of heaven upon the housetops, and them that worship and that swear by the Lord and that swear by Malcolm, and them that are turned back from the Lord, and those that have not sought the Lord. That turn back from the Lord, huh? Once saved, always saved, I thought. Nor inquired for him. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is at hand. For the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice. He hath bid his guests, his bride. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the king's children and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. In the same day also will I punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their master's house with violence and deceit. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. It was a neat thing about that fish gate I learned this week. The fish gate is the east gate, but fish gate it's also known as the Golden Gate. Do we know of some place that has a Golden Gate and also has something to do with fishing? Fisherman's Wharf and Golden Gate Bridge. Huh. Just a statement. Howl ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. And it shall come to pass at that time that I will search Jerusalem with candles. I will search Jerusalem with candles, lights, and punish the men that are settled on their lees, that say in their heart, the Lord will not do good, neither will he do evil. The Lord delayeth his coming. He is an absentee landlord. He'll search them out with candle lights. Therefore their goods shall become a booty, and their houses a desolation. They shall also build houses, but not to inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards, but not drink the wine thereof. The great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wastedness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. You mean God? I thought God was light and in him lied no darkness. Huh. Darkness and gloominess. Evil. So, the sun will be black as sackcloth and the moon will be as blood. Verse 16, a day and a trumpet and an alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers, and I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk alike blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. Chapter 2. Gather yourselves together, ye. Gather together, O nation, not desired. Before the decree, bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff. Before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the seacoast, the nation of the Cherethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan. The land of the Philistines. Canaan, Philistines. I will even destroy thee, and there shall be no inhabitant. And the sea coast shall be dwellings, and the cottages for shepherds, and folds for flocks. And the coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall feed thereupon in the houses of Ashkelon. Shall they lie down in the evening, for the Lord their God shall visit them, and turn away their captivity. I have heard the reproach of Moab, and the revilings of the children of Ammon, whereby they were reproached by my people, and magnified themselves against their border. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah, even the breeding of nettles and salt pits, and perpetual desolation, the residue, the remnant of my people shall spoil them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them. This shall they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of the Lord of hosts. The Lord will be terrible unto them, for he will famish all the gods of the earth, and men shall worship him, every one from his place, even all the isles of the heathen. Ye Ethiopians also, ye shall be slain by my sword. And he will stretch out his hand against the north, and destroy Assyria, and will make Nineveh a desolation and dry like a wilderness. And flocks shall lie down in the midst of her, and all beasts of the nations, both the cormorant and the bittern, shall lodge in the upper lintels of it. Their voice shall sing in the windows, desolation shall be in the thresholds, for he shall uncover the cedar work. This is the rejoicing city that dwelt carelessly, that said in her heart, I am, and there is none beside me. Sounds like America to me, or Babylon. That reminds me. Okay, so y'all know that Billie Eilish, you know, the weird Satanist lady. So her name Billie and Eilish. So Billie stands for Babili, and Eilish means kind or kin. So she's telling you she is of a Babylon kind. So there's that. Don't let your kids listen to that. How has she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down in? Every one that passeth by her shall hiss and wag his hand. Chapter 3, my favorite. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice, she received not correction. She trusted not in the Lord, she drew not near to her God. Her princes within her are roaring lions, her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary, they have done violence to the law. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. So he's here. He's in the midst. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. I have cut off the nations. Their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste, that none passeth by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there is no man, that there is none inhabitant. I said, surely thou wilt fear me. Thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off. Howsoever I punished them, but they rose early, and corrupted all their doings. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, and I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. For then will I turn to the people a purge. Oh, I love this. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent, meaning everybody will speak the same language, just like before. They will all speak the same language. What does it say? Aren't these Galileans? Why do we all hear them in our native tongue? Because we're all going to speak the same language. We'll all speak a different language, but you'll understand it the same. Anyway. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that are... I will take of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain, Zion. I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. Afflicted and poor people. Why were they afflicted and pressured? Did they not have any oil in their lamp, and now they have oil? But they're not the bride. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Sing, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord hath taken away thy judgments. He hath cast out thine enemy. The King of Israel, even the Lord, is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil any more. In that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, Fear thou not, and to Zion, Let not thine hands be slack. The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. At that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. So, we made it. Just a shade under 3 hours. Good deal. There was another movie I wanted to mention. It's a Vin Diesel movie. It's called Pitch Black. But in that, Vin Diesel could see in the dark, and he could see all these entities, and they were attacking. And then there was a part in that movie where there was one candle that one person was holding. One candle. And it was holding off thousands, millions of these entities. One candle. That's all it takes. One candle. Do not let your light go out. I love you guys. If you guys have any questions about the exosomes or the other stuff, leave it in the comments, and I will point you in the directions that you can study. Like I said, I don't cast my pearls before swine, and I'm not calling anybody swine, but I expect everybody else to study. The Lord has led me through landmines and guided me in things to study and where to look and how to go. If I can be that for anybody else, I will. But you have to learn it on your own. You have to learn, because you have to teach someone else. You are responsible. You become responsible. Once you hear the word of the Lord, you become responsible for that word. Do not hide that light. Do not hide that word. Like I said, I love you guys. Hopefully we'll see you this next weekend. Like I said, I'm gonna try and do something on the prophets that are supposedly in Jerusalem, prophesying in the streets for 42 months. His two witnesses and the bride. I'm going to try and do something, a teaching on that, to where you can see it, how they meld together. Like I said, Crystal from Dreaming of Heaven did a great job on that video that she did. It's called The Two Witnesses. I would advise you, even if you've seen it, go back to her channel and binge watch. The Lord speaks to her. So, anyway, my wife and I, like I said, we just want to tell you that we love you all very much and that we pray for you daily. My wife, she has this list of people she prays for, and I couldn't do it. She's got that gift of prayer. I don't. I wish, I can pray, but she has a list, and in that list is stuff to pray for on everybody, and she just goes through it every morning. It might take her an hour to get through it, but she does it. It might take her even longer, but she still does it. Anyway, keep us all in prayer. We're praying for you. Love you guys.